The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
Welcome to today's verdict, the show that gives you your legal rights and options. I'm your host and trial attorney for the next 30 minutes, David Lesch. Earlier this year, Mayor Michael Bloomberg presented his budget proposal for the 2012 fiscal year. Discussed were tentative cuts to several city agencies, including the public school system, which serves over 1 million students. With the July 1st budget deadline approaching, many see a frightful September with the possibility of losing 6% of active teachers in the system. This would affect 80% of 1,600 schools in New York City. Let's take a look at what the mayor had to say.
It's the country's biggest public school system. More than 1 million students attend New York City schools. Now the mayor wants to lay off 8% of all public school teachers.
We have the best teachers in the nation, and so when we talk about teachers' layoffs, which has serious consequences for real people, it is not for lack of city funds. The budget assumes that we will lose about 6,000 teachers through layoffs and attrition.
The mayor says he's forced to make the cuts because the city has lost nearly $2 billion in state and federal money. Though the city recently found it has $2 billion in unexpected tax revenue. That's why the teachers union president calls the proposed teacher layoffs, quote, bizarre.
So we see it as the mayor seems content and actually seems motivated to try to hurt the children of New York City.
White House Education Secretary Arne Duncan says it's happening everywhere.
These are just very tough budget times. That's the reality. It's what we're calling it the new normal.
In New York City, this would be the most significant layoff of teachers since the 1970s.
Joining us in studio to discuss the changes within the school system and the effects of these layoffs is City University and New York Law School professor Natalie Gomez-Velez. Ms. Gomez-Velez is an expert in public school government, and we are lucky to have her on the show. Ms. Gomez-Velez, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, David.
All right, let's take a step back for a second and talk a little bit about the history of the public school system and the way it's run prior to 2002.
Okay, I think it's really important to have a conversation about both the governance structure and all of the fights that have happened to get us to where we are, facing these tremendous teacher layoffs that really would be disastrous. And I think when we think about how the concerns that we have around these layoffs, we've really got to connect it to the governance structure that we've had since mayoral control in 2002, which was restored again in 2009, which really cuts out the ability of parents and other stakeholders to have their voices heard on discussions about public education that are really important to all of us.
For some of the newer parents, what was it like before 2002?
Well, before 2002, there was a lot of complaints about a Board of Education that had little accountability because there were several stakeholders involved. There were appointees by various elected officials. The mayor had some appointees. The borough presidents had a role, et cetera. And so what people complained about was that people would point fingers at each other. On the other hand, though, it was designed with 32 school districts that were designed to have a decentralized process feeding into a centralized process. There were a lot of complaints about school failures, lack of accountability that then led to a broader push for mayoral control.
Which is what Mayor Bloomberg ran on. To be, one of the things that he ran on was he was going to reform the school system. Let's, forward to 2002. What took place then?
So in 2002, he finally got the legislation to achieve mayoral control. Now, the legislation was designed to provide for some opportunity for public input. They established the Board of Education stayed in place. Its name was changed. Its appointment structure was changed to have 5 appointees by the borough presidents and 8 appointees by the mayor, with the understanding, though, that initially these appointees would represent the various constituencies around the city. We soon learned in 2004 that that was not going to be the case, and we really were dealing with a situation where the mayor was in total control, did not allow any voices of dissent to be heard. And I think that brings us to where we are today, facing awful choices in education, where if we had a situation that was where more public participation was allowed, I think there would be a more openness to solutions that are better than losing 6,100 teachers in one fell swoop.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of teachers. It's devastating. It's devastating to efforts that have been made to improve and reform education over the past 20 years and longer. And it takes strides that people have made and basically guts them completely. I don't understand why the mayor is taking this tack. It would damage not only teaching and
now, what happened in 2009?
In 2009, there was basically the 2002 legislation was designed to sunset in 2009. It was an experiment in mayoral control, et cetera. And so the legislature considered the legislation again in 2009. Now, there had been some efforts to increase. I mean, the particular area of concern had been that parents, stakeholders, the public really weren't having any opportunity to participate.
Is that because they weren't invited, or just the legislation didn't provide that they were given a say? Or
the
a little
legislation
both, really?
provides for a say, but the reality of the way that the vote was structured, in 2004 there was a vote on high-stakes tests, which has been another contentious issue with this mayor. Summarily, basically, the votes had laid out in a way that where the matter was going to fail. In other words, making retention decisions based on a single test was about to fail. The mayor just summarily fired the three of the representatives that he appointed who were going to vote against it and decided to vote for them.
I think that has always been the criticism of Mayor Bloomberg, is that he seems to take so much control over a particular issue.
And that's different from the design of the mayoral control legislation that we have, but the reality is once people see that their input doesn't matter, then I think we're in a very difficult situation.
Let's talk about the layoffs, all right? Because we're dealing with a situation where the city is hemorrhaging money. It doesn't have money, obviously, and somehow we're trying to save in every possible place we can get, whether it's police, fire, anywhere we can do it. And obviously, teachers are getting cut. Was this a rash decision? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think my opinion on that is related to not listening to other options for how we might both raise revenue and look at other places for reductions. For example, there are a number of advocacy organizations that have offered alternatives to these teacher layoffs, including looking at other places, looking at the Chancellor's press office. Let's reduce that. Let's look at revenue raising in places where we've had given tax breaks that no longer can be sustained. Let's look at that. Let's look at some of the no-bid contracts and other contracts that are not doing anything good that we can tell, and let's make cuts there.
What does this do to a classroom, by the way?
Oh, it's devastating. What it does to a classroom, what it does to a school and a community. One, you'll have already class sizes are increasing. I think you're going to hear a little bit more about that with advocates. What you're able to offer in a school. If you're an administrator of a school, there's so much emphasis on test taking and test scores only that a number of the things that really light kids up about going to school, you won't be able to offer. You won't have the teachers available to do that.
Professor, let me ask you. All right, let's say Michael Bloomberg was talking to you. What would you do? What would you do to try and listen? The money. It's tough to get to have the money to keep all the teachers. Obviously, nobody wants layoffs. But what would you do to try and remedy the situation?
I would urge him to listen to the range of advocates who are saying there are other ways to address the budget issues. This is not the way to do it. It just destroys a foundation that has been built over so many years to improve education. So look in other places, both on the revenue side and on the expenditure side. There are other places where things could be cut. If you have Citizens Budget Commission and Cranes and everyone agreeing that this is not the way to go to balance the budget, he should listen. And that's been the key thing around governance that's been a problem.
Well, this is a really an issue that we're going to explore for the rest of the show. So just hang out, okay? Because we're gonna have to take a quick break. But stay with us, because coming up, we'll continue discussing teacher layoffs and New Yorkers' reactions. We'll be right back.
My name's Brandon. I'm 9 years old, being alcoholic.
Hi, Brandon.
I'll start drinking with the older kids. And whatever they do, I'll do.
Kids who drink before age 15 are 5 times more likely to have alcohol problems when they're adults. So start talking before they start drinking.
I know it'll start with alcohol. I'm just not sure how it's going to end.
I'm your host, David Lesch. We at Today's Verdict want to hear from you, so send us questions, comments, or show ideas to davidlesch@bronxnet.org. On today's show, we've been debating the possible layoffs of more than 4,000 teachers here in New York City. Recently, we went to your community to see your reaction to the massive cuts to the school system. Let's see what you had to say.
Well, as we all know, children are the future. It's not just a cliche, it is real. And if our kids are not getting educated and not well enough, then what can we expect of our future professionals? Where will they be, in an office or in a jail, in the jail system, in the prison system? So I think that firing the teachers could affect our children's education in a negative way. It will actually hurt them, not help them.
We need more teachers in our schools. Our schools are overcrowded. Our children need better education. We need more teachers, not less teachers. There are more students in school now than before.
Very important to me. I feel it's very important because our future needs to learn. Just like they learn, just like the mayor learned. How you think he got where he's at? He wasn't taught by tutors, and if he was taught by tutors, that's a teacher. Okay, that's a teacher. Don't cut out teachers from our kids. Give them what they need, what's owed to them.
It's all up to the student. It doesn't matter how many students you have in a class, right? Or how overcrowded the class is. It's up to the student to learn what they want to learn. You know what I'm saying? A teacher can only do what they got to do. I know as a civilian, I guess you want to say, a lot of people complain about, like not having enough school systems and teachers and stuff, but let's keep this, students in there and keep the education in the classroom. So hopefully they can learn something like while they're in the classroom, so when they leave, they'll have something to do. Stay educated, that's the whole key. Stay educated, America.
I don't think the budget cuts are really smart or progressive to the community. I do believe that we do need outstanding teachers to educate our students and keep our education system going.
Joining us on today's show is Professor Natalie Gomez-Velez, who is here to share her expert insight on the possible effects of school layoffs, including their effects on student rights. Once again, thanks for being with us.
Thank you,
Professor, I grew up in the public school system in Queens, elementary school, junior high school, and high school as well. Some schools of the three, some were better than others. The student-teacher ratio when I was in school was approximately 28 students to every teacher. What's it like now?
Oh, it's ranging. It's interesting because it's been, and I think you're going to have a guest later who has really detailed information about this. But going to the whole issue of class size, even before we were talking about these cuts, a commitment had been made connected to the Campaign for Fiscal Equity lawsuit around providing equitable funding for students in New York City in particular and across the state. And among the issues around equity is class size. Class size is an important component of that. A teacher is limited in terms of the ability to reach every student in a classroom if they've got upwards of 30, 40 students. We'd been moving in a direction, and there were targets pursuant to contracts for excellence that were put in place as a result of the settlement of the Campaign for Fiscal Equity lawsuit that were designed to reduce class size, to increase equity, to target funds to go to the neediest schools, in other words, to support those schools that needed the help the most. All of that, with these budget cuts, is just going to be trashed completely with the stroke of a pen. So these are commitments that have been made. The Campaign for Fiscal Equity lawsuit started back in the 90s and was fought hard for so many years, was settled. There was agreement about the additional funding that was needed and that funding needed to be targeted. These cuts are going to hit the neediest schools, the neediest districts the most.
Let's talk about some of the lawsuits. I mean, there's not just one. There seems to be multiple lawsuits.
There are multiple lawsuits going on at this time. CFE is not a lawsuit that's currently going on. It's a settlement of a lawsuit that where money should be coming to produce equity. There are a number of lawsuits involving the question of co-location of charter schools and public schools on these questions of class size. Well, it's an interesting thing. One of the issues we've seen with mayoral control and also with some of the reforms that we're seeing involves privatization and corporatization, the introduction of competition in education. And there's a way in which that's appealing to some parents.
Is that a bad thing?
Well, it's a bad thing if policymakers are putting parents and students in a position where they are fighting for what every single parent and student should be getting, a sound basic education. And, you know, to say, oh, you're on one side of this issue and the other, I think that there are concerns about, they're both innovative charter schools, and there are concerns about the way that we're plunging into funneling public monies to charter schools that deserve a lot of attention. What I really think is a problem, though, is pitting parent against parent and student against student, when what really should be done is focusing on providing a sound, excellent education for every student and doing that equitably. And I don't think that's what we're seeing now. So what we're seeing with, for example, the NAACP and the teachers' lawsuit about co-location in the same building of charter schools with existing public schools, that there's a fight going on for resources that you can't blame either one side or the other on the parents or the students, but you have to blame the policymakers. How are they creating a condition like this?
We're going to come back, and I want to talk more about that. Very, very interesting and timely topic, actually. We'll take a quick commercial break, but coming up, we'll meet two local education advocates and find out their opinion on the possible layoffs. We'll be right back.
You know, when I was younger, man, my brother was the one who really took care of me, man.
Is that right?
Hey, he'd wake me up in the morning, get me ready for school, take a shower, make me some breakfast.
Where your brother at now?
Oh, you know, Iraq. I get lonely, nobody to talk to. Felt like quitting school. He looked at me dead in my eye. He told me, if not for me, do it for him.
Give Josh and our class of 08 the boost they need to graduate. Join us at boostup.org.
My name's Brandon. I'm 9 years old, being alcoholic.
Hi, Brandon.
I'll start drinking with the older kids. And whatever they do, I'll do.
Kids who drink before age 15 are 5 times more likely to have alcohol problems when they're adults. So start talking before they start drinking.
I know it'll start with alcohol. I'm just not sure how it's gonna end.
Low-fat cheese sandwiches on whole wheat bread. Chewy and good for you. Snacks high in calcium help build strong bones, and foods rich in fiber are good for your heart. So you have the power to dominate. Can your food do that? Run, throw, think, eat better.
I love them because first of all, because they teach me. And I like to do things with a lot of activities that everyone can do and enjoy.
She helps you understand it and how it connects to your life and the real world. And she doesn't just help you in her subject alone, she also helps you just in general. She helps you through the whole getting and adjusting to high school process.
I like how she brings us on a lot of trips, and those trips help us learn new things.
And she teaches us individually, except for the kids who really need it. If she can tell, like, if somebody's having trouble and she, like, helps them out.
It's really good to have teachers that like what they're teaching, so they understand it and they really love what they're doing, so they bring that to their lessons.
She helps us with everything when we need help, and she's really supportive if anything happens at home. They spend time and energy on helping us build our dreams and accomplishing our hopes.
Well, the kids that you're going to be taking away education from, it's them that's going to be running your future, so you should probably educate them so they can do a good job.
I think that this is a bad idea because it will hurt future generations if they don't have proper education. When kids like their teachers and suddenly they just get fired, it's not very nice, and it would be very hard for them. I think they should just save those teachers and they shouldn't fire them.
I'd like to see him go into schools right now and try and deal with that many kids in the classroom. I mean, my teachers who have been trained to do this have so much trouble. It's ridiculous.
I think he's crazy if he cuts class sizes because they're already big enough as it is, and it wouldn't really be fair.
I have 38 kids in my class, and if he thinks that it's even possible to learn anything with any more, he's out of his mind.
Mayor Bloomberg, I don't want you to fire my teachers because they're really important to me, and I'm really going to miss them if you fire them, so please don't fire them.
Welcome back to today's verdict. I'm David Lesch. Remember, we at the show want to hear from you, so send your questions, comments, and show ideas to davidlesch@BronxNet.org. Joining us in studio to further discuss the effects of a potential teacher layoff and how you can fight this storm is Executive Director of Class Size Matters, Leonie Aimson, and active public school parent, Shino Tanakawa. Both of you, welcome to the show. I think I got the names right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, thanks. Very powerful video we were watching. I think it sends a very strong message. Did you feel that way when you were making the video, Shino?
Yes, I did. And what I really wanted to do was to hear from the kids because they are the ones who are most affected by the teacher layoffs. So what I did is I identified some friends with kids in the public school system, and I asked them if I could videotape them. And I left them very open-ended. I asked the kids, who are your favorite teachers? What do you love about them? And I didn't coach them. I didn't direct them in any way. Just asked simple questions, and I asked them what they would miss the most about the teacher if that teacher were to be fired.
It's the most honest answer you're going to get is from a child, and you really see how they're going to be affected, which leads me to, Lanny, let me ask you, how are these kids going to be affected now through these teacher layoffs?
Well, if we lose these 6,100 teaching positions, it would be catastrophic. We would see class size increases of a range that we have not seen in more than 30 years in this city. And this is in the context of already we've seen sharply increased class sizes in the last 3 years.
Well, what is the
For
class size
example,
now?
It differs according to grade, but in the Bronx in particular, we have the largest kindergarten class sizes in the city. Almost half of all kindergartners are in classes of 25 or more, and this is in the context of the city promising to reduce them to less than 20. So instead of less than 20, which is really where they should be, according to the CFE case, according to all the experts, especially in the younger grades, especially in kindergarten, we have a situation now in the Bronx where class sizes, the number of kids in classes that big have doubled in the last 3 years. So this would create an even worse trend for the future. All the research is absolutely crystal clear that the start you get in life and in school has a huge determining effect on where you are later in life, and there's no factor that's more important than class size.
Are we also going to see some closings of schools as well, or grades being moved to other schools? Or is it basically the student-to-teacher ratio that's the most affected here?
Well, actually, we're seeing a lot of school closings anyway, but that's not actually related to the budget cuts. That's a policy decision on the part of the Department of Education. And one of the recommendations that we've made is to stop the school closings and the new school openings, because that's actually very expensive, and that's will cost us $15 million next year to close schools and open up new schools in their place. So this is one of the ways in which we think the city is actually wasting money. Another way is the sharp rise in private contracts and consultants. So we projected that if you just cut down the increase in private contracts and consultants by 2/3, you could save $400 million, which would save all those teaching positions and more.
What are those private contracts for? Privately contracting to have other teachers come in? I'm not quite sure what they are.
There's a whole range of things that we contract out. Some of them are difficult to eliminate or to reduce. We spend over $1 billion a year on busing contracts that are not competitively bid. They're sole source contracts, and the amount is going up every year. So they should be renegotiating those contracts. A lot of the contracts are for testing. We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on testing and data systems that don't work, that don't benefit our kids and that we think are actually damaging their children's education because too much emphasis is being placed on the test scores and not enough on actually improving the learning conditions in the classroom.
Well, Sheena, let me ask you a question. Have you spoke to any parents about this? What is the feeling of the parents in the community?
Parents are very, very concerned right now because they already have their children, many of the parents that I know, have their children in classes that are already too big. My third grade daughter is in a class with 28 kids, and that's a pretty normal size class for my school. And parents are feeling that class size already, and they're afraid of having that class size increase to even more. And I think what the policymakers don't understand is that education and teaching and learning isn't just about the transfer of knowledge from the teacher to the students. It's about human relationships between the teacher and the student. And that's one thing that I learned talking to the kids when I made the video. They really cherish that relationship with a teacher. And that is going to be compromised when there are so many more extra kids in the classroom, when the teacher cannot really pay attention to individual students the way they really should.
Well, Lanny, let me ask you a question. Do you think this is going to affect test scores? Is it going to affect graduation rates?
Well, I don't know about graduation rates because graduation rates are pretty much fixed. Okay. It's a scam going on in our schools. The teachers are told to pass kids, pass the regions. They need to get those graduation rates up, or they fear losing their schools and losing their jobs. Graduation rates are going up. It has nothing to do with learning.
It has nothing to do with how bright a child actually is.
Or whether they're learning anything in school at all. But I can tell you that, just for a simple contrast, the class size averages outside New York City and the rest of the state are 20 in all grades. And yet here in New York City, in many schools across the city, we're at 30, 34 or more. And next year, what we imagine is going to happen, what the DOE is planning for, is class sizes in grades K through 3 at 28 and 32 to 34 in the rest of the grades. And that would be disastrous for our kids. Learning would definitely be diminished. Disciplinary referrals go way high, sky high when class sizes are increased because kids feel like their needs aren't being addressed. A whole range of negative effects on our school in terms of student engagement and really being able to reach each kid where their level is.
Well, tell me, how are you fighting this? What are you doing? Is it through lawsuits, or are you picketing? How are you getting the word out?
We're doing lots of rallies. We're telling people to call their city council members. We're meeting with the speaker tomorrow, Speaker Quinn, to just impress upon her how important this is to parents. We believe that everything else in the DOE's budget should come after saving those 6,000 teaching positions, and yet over and over, their priorities are otherwise. Increasing the bureaucracy, increasing computers. The DOE wants to spend over $1 billion next year on technology contracts.
Well, here's the thing. This topic, you have a lot of passion here from both of you, which I think is very, very important. I think the community needs to see that. We're in tough economic times, but I think the last place we really want to cut is teachers. And hopefully you guys, maybe you ladies can come back and we can discuss it again in the next couple of months and see if the layoffs actually went through. Is that okay?
We would love that.
I'd love
to.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Terrific. All right. Well, that's all for tonight. It's time to deliberate. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us, and of course you for watching. Remember, if there's a legal issue or topic you would like to see on the show, email me at davidlesch@BronxNet.org. And until we see you again, always remember, know your rights, know your issues, reach a verdict. We'll see you next time.